Good afternoon, all. So, I'm filming this after I filmed the other two parts, so if I sound a little crazy between the two, I'm sorry. Today is the first how-to tutorial video of my channel. We are going to go over a knot and then a fishing technique. Today's technique is going to be a couple versions of Texas rigging, and we're going to go over the knot that I use primarily. It's the only knot that I actually use that I know of. I use a couple leader knots, which I'll go over those later. But as far as what I tie to my hooks, it's the only knot I use. Only pack of hooks I had with me in the car, I thought I had more, were my emergency pack of Catch Coast stickies. I don't normally use them. It's an emergency pack for a reason. Got it in the mystery tackle box. Figured to keep it in the car, always have them. They are my favorite size of hook for Ohio, which is a 3/0. This is an offset worm hook. I normally like extra wide gap. But as I said, it's emergency, get me out fishing. So I'm going to show how to tie this using these. Just a standard extra wide gap hook. This is what you can be using for Texas rig. I've got two different lines with me to try to give you guys a better view. One of them is an 8-pound low vis green. The other is 12-pound clear mono. So the only knot I use is a knot I've used for a long time, and that would be a palomar knot. Now, it's a little hard to see. Try to keep it in the light. This is the line I'm using. A palomar knot is a very strong knot. People use it all the way up through catching 100-pound catfish with their lines. It's one of the stronger knots as far as knot to hook, because it loops back in itself, so you have two pieces of line going through the eyelet of the hook, and it makes it harder to break. So to start, I always face the hook away from where I thread the line. So you thread the line through the eyelet. Hook's hanging on the line. No, it's kind of hard to see. I then take my line, give myself some extra slack here, and feed the line back through the eyelet. Slide the hook down a little bit. You then grab both ends, the loop and the tag, with the rest of the line, and then you go like you're tying a knot. You pull the loop around and through the tag end. I get it kind of small, to where you can see it's like that. And then you take that loop and you put it around the hook, the lure, the bait, whatever, and pull the loop up above the previous loop. And you start pulling tight. When I get so far, I grab just the tag end and start pulling there. And it just closes up, it cinches down on itself. When I get right at the end, I'll grab both lines again and pull. And then I'll grab one line, then the other line, and make sure it doesn't slip. And then, sorry, I was seeing if I had my nail cutters with me. I thought I grabbed them, but I don't see them. Oops. Actually, they might be in my pocket. Been sitting here. Yeah, there they are. Pre-organized. My nail clippers have a little hole in them. I always use that to hold the hook so I don't accidentally stab myself. And then you take the tag end and you just clip the tag end off, however short you want it. I always go almost all the way up to the knot. I leave a little bit in case the knot slips a little bit when wet. Just a little tiny little tail there. Little tiny tail. And that's how you tie it. It's one of the strongest knots. I've only had it fail once, and that was my fault. I twisted my line, and I will go over that in a further video when I start talking about fluorocarbon line. I don't use it very often because I don't use braid very often. It's the only time I've actually really used fluorocarbon as a leader. But this is my favorite knot. I've been using it for probably close to 20 years, and it's about the only thing I'll use. All right, all, we're tied on. So we have the same 3/0 hook here. Try to show you. And we have a 1/16 ounce right now. This one's tungsten. Little worm weight, bullet weight, flipping weight, whatever. It doesn't make a huge difference in my opinion on those. Now I'm using a Guggen Baits, Kraken Crawl, and Summer Crawl because I am pretty much out of all my crawl baits. I went through like 4 or 5 packs of Bad Creek custom baits, backwater crawls really quickly. They absolutely love to hammer those for me. But this is my last backup, honestly, and I'm out of crawls for the summer, for the season. I have some beaver baits and whatnot. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna take this and we're going to just insert this into the bait about so far. And we're going to come out. Then we're gonna slide it up, twist the hook around, slide the eyelet in. Same thing, just like the fluke or the creek minnow. We're gonna take it, we're gonna find where the hook goes through, and we're gonna feed that through. And then just like the fluke, the reason I love these hooks, I don't have to tuck it back in to keep it weedless. Now, when you're fishing a weighted Texas rig, especially on a crawl or something, you're more than likely going to maintain bottom contact, pop it off the bottom, drag it along. There's a number of different techniques with that. If you use the Guggen Squad Kraken Crawl, make sure you separate the pinchers. They come attached with a little piece of plastic there. Make sure you separate those. Gives it a lot more action. So we're going to start right here. I'll move around a little bit with this one. We're just going to cast out and down. And this one we're going to wait and let it hit the bottom. We're not going to just start moving it. I mean, we definitely could, but we're not going to. We're going to give it time to hit the bottom. It's a lightweight on an heavy crawl. So we're just going to let that go. When we think we're on bottom, we're going to reel in some slack. Try to get the weight closer to the crawl because they typically fall separately. The weight's going to pull down and then the crawl is going to fall closer. For me, the most common technique I always start with is I'll pop it up a time or two, let it sink, and then let it sit for a moment and just watch my line. Leave it partly slack. You can typically see when a fish comes up and bites it. Then you just pull up on it a little bit and just keep bringing it along. Now, I've only caught fish here on moving baits so far. Chatterbaits actually only. Never caught anything, or, yeah, no, they didn't hit topwater for me here, so. It was chatterbaits only here. And that's probably the go-to bait right now because the fall feed up. But I always like giving crawls a good solid try because they are bass candy. Bass love them. So another technique you can do with this, as I mentioned, is just dragging the bottom. And I'll show that on this next cast. The other thing is, fish, when you're bank fishing ponds like this, bring your bait all the way in. You'd be surprised how shallow of water big bass will come and hit. Any bass will, for that matter. And you never know, there might be a hole there that you didn't know, and it could have a fish sitting on it. So that hole that is 5 inches in front of you might be 3 foot deep. And that 3 foot deep may hold 5 or 6 fish. So, always fish your bait all the way in unless you know it's like 2 inches of water and you're just trying to get over it. So, when I drag my bait, I'll get it down there, let it sit a moment. I'll twitch it a time or two. There we go. moving the bait now. And then let it sit again. And then I'm going to start dragging it. And the reason I twitch it like that is give it that first bit of motion in case something's watched it fall. And then I'll just move the rod ever so slowly without lifting. It's just dragging the bottom right now. My beautiful wife is out here doing photos with me, taking some photos for me. So you just drag it, and then once you get to the end of your drag, you let it sit. And sometimes I'll pick it up when it's dragging, sometimes I'll pick it up when it's sitting. So reel in, leave yourself a little slack, but you can watch them pick it up normally. Oftentimes when they pick this up for me, they hit it and they run. They just grab it and they're moving. They may be coming towards you. You may not realize they have it until a moment later. I wanted to throw the crawl here though, because I know there's a lot of rocks on the bottom and crawfish live in the rocks. I don't know if it's getting too late for them or not, but it's always a nice option to try. People will throw big jigs with crawl trailers and beavers and whatnot on it, imitating crawfish, all the way through winter and catch fish. So I don't think there's a wrong time of year to throw a crawl bait. Now, is it the most accurate bait to throw right now? No. As I said, it's the fall feed up starting right now. They're going to be chasing fish real heavy, real hard. It's definitely the prime bait to use would be a chatterbait, a crankbait, spinnerbait, a paddle tail. I'm in a rock right now. There we go. And when you find stuff like that, wiggle it, twitch it. It'll often pop right out.